Okay, so it seems that there's been a little bit more to do with the whole Holostars situation, which a lot of people have been talking about, involving some other Hololive members, as well as some of the members of Holostars as well, correcting misinformation, because obviously whenever it comes to a big situation like this, of course there is going to be a lot of misinformation that is going to be spread, right? And it's going to be pretty horrible for a lot of the people involved, because again, it does suck, and it's going to happen because people want to push either, they want to push like stuff to I guess, like, you know provide more negative feedback, whatever, to Holostars, or just to try and get on top of a lot of the kind of negative stuff that's been going their way at the moment, in regards to the whole downsizing of Holostars. But essentially, some people have been discussing as well this old clip from Mio, where essentially this says people are blaming Holostars management a lot, but we have to keep in mind that specifically the do not talk with guys thing was started by the Hololive fandom and even talents to maintain the an idol image, which again, obviously they discussed this clip which came out from Mio, where essentially she says that, whenever I see a Holoman playing a game with male VTubers, I feel a bit yuck. It's kind of like my heart hurts. Now, of course, there was extra context to this. There was more to this clip, where she essentially goes on to talk about the fact that, she doesn't mind other people playing with male VTubers and whatever, or kind of, doing whatever with a male VTuber. That's fine. But she said that it's her personal preference, and that, she wouldn't, she prefers interacting with other female VTubers, and that, whenever she sees someone else do it, she feels a bit yuck, but, she can't stop them. She can't say she hates it. She can't say, like, to tell them to stop it, because, of course, it's not her place to do so. So, again, I do think, maybe this was taking it a little bit out of context here. But again, of course, there has been a culture, though, of, maybe not interacting with female to male VTubers quite a lot, because yeah, it can, spark things like weird rumors and whatever, and sometimes it can be more so to protect them rather than being like a anti-male kind of thing, which a lot of people tend to think it might be. I do think a lot of the time it is to protect them, because people are weird on Twitter. They're parasocial, right? They might see like two a male and a female VTuber collabing quite a bit, especially within, maybe Hololive and Holostars, whatever, and they go, ooh, maybe they're secretly dating or something like that, and then obviously it'll start like going into some big rumors, and it'll get weird. And of course, to avoid that altogether, you don't collab with them, and that's essentially the sad part, right? But obviously people were saying like, hey, one of the big reasons as to why maybe Holostars hasn't done as well is because of the lack of those collabs, right? Because of course, there is definitely less collabs with Holostars and Hololive and Holostars and female VTubers, right? That are big. Of course, that can sometimes affect it, right? Now, of course, I don't think they should be entirely relying on Hololive to actually, kind of, build up the career, right? I think that is something that people are forgetting. Of course, it would help them a lot if they could interact with the Hololive members, and I think they would have done a lot better if that was the case. But of course, I think that also at the same time, they got to be entertaining enough. They've got to kind of do this stuff on their own as well. They can't just rely on the popularity of Hololive to build up their careers, right? And they should be able to do that on their own, regardless of whether they can get this collab or not. But again, obviously, some people just have been discussing that. But why are we discussing this? Well, it seems like in a thread recently, people were talking about Mio. I don't know if it's related to the same situation, but essentially, a member of Holostars, Estelle, actually responded to a bit of misinformation that was going around underneath this post, which has now been deleted, or the account has been deleted, actually. Then now that they actually replied to it, but essentially said a random guy is spreading misinformation about the Holostars and astelleda, immediately shutting him down. And obviously, yeah, they say, didn't Astel and Orlandis from Holostars say they were waiting outside the studio because they wanted to get with the Holo members? Doesn't it creep you out that when some random guy is waiting outside like that, why is it that guys like you only ever have eyes for Holostars' side? No wonder the Holo members keep their distance. I mean, there are creepy fans like that around. Now, of course, what they're essentially trying to claim here is that, some of the Holostars members were waiting outside of the studio for, the Hololive members to, exit, and maybe they could, talk to them or whatever, or maybe, I don't know. Well, like, I don't know what they're kind of implying there with it. But essentially, that didn't happen, right? They're lying. They've literally come up with something, off the top of their head, and that they are, spreading misinformation about the Holostars members, right? And of course, then Astro actually responds, obviously, one of the people they specifically mentioned saying, "Don't be so careless, man. I didn't do shit, Lamau. www." And then obviously, yeah, that's a pretty easy, simple response. They didn't do it. They didn't do anything. And of course, that's, it's just not the case, right? And I think it is crazy, that some people are trying to take advantage of a pretty terrible situation for them already, because I feel like it's pretty bad for the Holostars already, right? I feel pretty bad for them, enough as it is. And I think it's just gotten even worse and even worse, with people having, misinformation spread about them, like essentially being creeps, which of course is not the case. It's not the case, and it's just some random person on Twitter. And the thing is, if they were so, 100%, down by their opinion, and they thought they were right, and they've got like evidence or proof of this happening or whatever, well, they probably wouldn't delete their account, would they? I feel like, this is 100% the case of, it's just someone spreading misinformation, trying to bring people like Estelle down. And of course, it's very disappointing to see, because again, as I said, they've already had it hard enough with the whole, Holostars, downsizing thing. And now it's getting even worse with, people spreading misinformation about them. And of course, people saying, ever since the news came out, I've seen so many Hololive fanboys, not just unicorns, be quick to try and smear the image of Holostars. Is really sad. So does he actually say careless? Feels like a weird translation. The original tweet, yeah, it's weird. It's more like, stop saying nonsense. Yeah, don't be so careless. Stop saying so. Yes. I mean, again, it could be a translation thing. That how dare they want to meet their co-workers / serious. And of course, if that was actually the case, again, I don't think, a situation like that occurred anyways. But, if they were waiting outside, and waiting for, their essentially co-workers, right? I don't think there's a problem with that, right? Of course, if they were random people or like a fan that was waiting outside of a studio for, one of them to come out, then of course that would be weird. But, they're co-workers, right? Maybe they said, oh, you want to go get like food after this or whatever, go chat or whatever. And that's quite a common thing with in Japan as well. Obviously, you got to remember, these are Japanese VTubers, right? There's a insane culture for, drinking, eating, whatever, after work, right? You go off all together as co-workers after work. And again, that could also be a factor, but nobody is really considering that. And again, it seems, pretty crazy that, people getting mad at some people wanting to meet their co-workers, if it even did happen, right? So this entire subreddit in a nutshell, true most of the time, is say if people actually gave a blank about Holostars, they would still be getting management support. I mean, people do. I think some people do care about Holostars. I just don't know if it's, I don't think the support has been enough for Cover to continue supporting them in the way that they have been. And of course, as I said, this is something that they can always bounce back from, right? If they do start to get more attention and more people following them and more people viewing their streams or whatever, then maybe, Cover could turn it around, because they haven't been like shut off, right? They haven't been shut off from Cover. They haven't been shut off from any support whatsoever. They're still under the branch and all of that kind of stuff. Yes, maybe they can't do merch and concerts the same way that they want to, but of course there is this case of like, if you do good, if you start gaining the views, if you start gaining the kind of like targets that, Cover really wants them to meet, well, maybe then they can start supporting them a little bit further and bring a lot of that stuff back later on. It's not gone forever. It could be back, in a year or so, if maybe, they can turn it around and make their streams, popular, which again, is all down to them, how they do it. And it seems like they're pretty ready to take on the task as well, with how a lot of them have been speaking about it, saying like, they're going to go even harder. They're going to try, as hard as they can to essentially, make the best stream they possibly can. And yeah, obviously that's good, right? Obviously it does push them to kind of make better streams and have something that people want to watch, because yes, of course, there has been the sentiment going around of like, a true Holostars fan doesn't watch Holostars, right? Because of course, they're essentially saying like the main community for them tends to be on like Twitter, when people like tweet about situations like this, and people get behind them, but nobody actually ever goes to their streams, right? Nobody actually ever goes to watch them, which of course is disappointing for them, because of course, it looks like you have so many fans when none of them come to support the actual stream itself. So if people start doing that more, then maybe there could be some kind of change, and maybe there could be some kind of update to that. But yeah, I mean, that is essentially all there is. I just kind of want to give you guys the update because, again, I thought it was pretty funny. The members directly responding to the actual misinformation being spread about them. And hopefully, yeah, they continue to do so, and they continue to just kind of shut down any kind of, stupid rumors like this, because, of course, stuff is going to be spread all the time with everything that's been going on. But yeah, that's what I got for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameStop, use my code Kazo, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.